The one thing that I would say to everybody out there, the one thing that you can do now, and this sounds super cliche, but imperfect action.
I'm really excited I get to share this episode with you today because I've never publicly shared this interview with Zander. Now, Zander is an amazing human being. He's one of the coolest, one of the smartest cats, and I'm so grateful that he's a friend of mine, but I'm so grateful that I get to share this episode with you today. Now, in this short interview, you're going to get an absolutely amazing insight into what it takes, what you need to be able to go through, and really some of the secret sauce that isn't really secret, but it's oh so needed to know when it comes to you being able to build a business, but really build a life that you really, really love. So I'm so grateful I get to share this with you today. I'd love to hear from you after this episode as to what you've been able to take out with it, because I'm going to be sitting down with Zander again, getting him back in front of the camera for you. And I would love to know what questions you want to ask for Zander and what he can be able to bring to you again in the next episode that we do this. So much of the problems or frustrations or the roadblocks that you're currently facing really are happening only because that you're simply doing the wrong thing. Now, it could be that you simply haven't been following the right plan for long enough for it to be able to fruit the results that you want, but a lot of the time as well, it's simply you just aren't doing the right thing. So when it comes to knowing what is to do to create the life that you want, to create the business you want, to create the income you want, to create the person that you want to be, what is it that you need to be able to do? Zander answers this.
That's a great question. I would actually define the old way, and this might even just be over the last maybe somewhere between 2 to 8 years. It's become, and I think a lot of it, everybody's kind of stuck in this like you're one funnel away mindset, right? And really because of that, everybody who's starting a coaching business, they're all trying to hit the funnel lotto. They're not actually putting in the work that's necessary to learn how to become a good business owner. Right? So I've known several people to be really lucky in the coaching space, and they do actually hit a funnel lotto maybe once. Maybe they hit a 6-figure business one time and then it collapses afterwards because they never actually built the real skill set that's necessary for them to be successful. Like, if you think about it, to build a coaching business, you have 2 pieces. You have coaching and you have business. And if you spend years learning the coaching side of things and you don't spend any time learning how to build a sustainable, long-term business, how can you ever expect to be successful? It's never going to work. So the biggest problem that I see people going after is, this old school idea of, that you can just be on the interwebs and all of a sudden you're going to have a massively successful, financially successful business because you're going to win the lotto. You can start a blog and all of a sudden everybody's going to want to hear what you have to say, and then the money's just going to start pouring into your Stripe account. Never going to work. You have to spend just as much time learning how to be successful as a business owner as you did becoming a coach.
So for me, there is no doubt from if you're just getting started or building your business and really making your life changes, or if you've really been in the game for a while and you've got some momentum, but you really haven't cracked it yet, that you're going to hit some rough patches. You're going to hit some problems. And when those problems arise, when you hit those rough patches, what is it that we need to be able to do? And I know what is really important is to be able to humanize so many of the people that we look up to, and to also understand that when you do get into those rough times, that you're not the only one. And that really gets away the guilt, it gets away the shame, it humanizes you, and it helps you be able to make the right decisions moving forward faster. And that's exactly what we have here.
Yeah, so it was really hard when I first got started. So when I first quit my job, I think a lot of people were like, because I came from the corporate world and I had a very successful job. So a lot of people thought that I had a bunch of money saved up. But I'm a millennial, right? So what did I do with my money? I spent all of it, right? So I had like 3 months worth of rent saved up when I quit my corporate job and decided to become a coach. And I spent all of it within the first 30 days. Not only did I spend all of it, I put another 21 grand onto credit cards, and I wasn't making any money. So I think in the very beginning, the hardest thing was investing in myself, hearing no's, not seeing success, and then continuing to move forward with courage. So one of the things that I always tell people, one of my first mentors that I ever invested in, I spent 12 grand on their coaching program and I literally got nothing. It was outdated systems. It was outdated tactics. There was minimal coaching. But if I were to go back and do it all over, that's the first thing that I would do again. And the reason is because it taught me two things. Number one, it taught me who I didn't want to be as a coach. And number two, it gave me the opportunity to face my fears and continue to move forward. And had I not had that opportunity to fail drastically and continue to face fears and move forward, I would not be where I am today. You know, the thing I always tell people, it's like if you're asking, you know, if you ask the world or God or divine presence or whatever it is to like be like courageous, do you think they actually like help you be courageous, or are you given the opportunity to be courageous? You're given the opportunity and you have to make the decision to be courageous and step into that. And that's what it did for me.
So we've talked about not doing the right thing being the reason that you haven't gotten the business, gotten the life, gotten what you want at the end of the day. And one of the easiest ways to be able to fast track your results is literally to be able to have a map to be able to follow. And one of the ways to get that map is to be able to have someone that has previously done it, someone that has achieved what it is that you want, someone that can literally show you the way. And a lot of the time this comes to having a mentor of some sort in your life to be able to literally give you that map, to show you the way, to hold your hand through that process. But a lot of the time, I feel like people are scared about asking for a mentor, or maybe even really the importance of paying for a mentor as well, because they're worried, are they going to just waste this money? Are they going to get the return on their investment as well? And that's why I asked Zander this.
The reason that I invested in my first mentor was pretty simple. I went to college, I went to UCLA, and I paid $100,000 for my degree in engineering, which taught me nothing for what I wanted to get in life. I think for most people, when this happens to them, they now have this association of that like investment in education as being a sunk cost. For me, I realized I'd spent $100,000 learning something that I didn't want to do. Why would I even hesitate to invest in myself now that I actually knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with my life? And on top of that, I also realized that the most important resource you have is not your money, it's your time. It's the only resource you can never get back. And I realized that every moment off purpose was a moment wasted. Every moment is either on purpose or off purpose, and every moment off purpose is a moment wasted. And I would spend whatever I needed to expedite my learning process to get to the point where I was bringing in a full-time income and helping people while doing it. Whatever I needed to spend to get there, I would make sure that that happened.
Now, one of the biggest problems that I find with so many people, especially in entrepreneurship, is they are looking for certainty and they're looking for confidence. And they're looking for these things at the very start when it is quite impossible to actually have those things to get moving. And so that's why I asked Zander right now, what is it that's actually needed? Because you could become your own worst enemy if you're looking for certainty and if you're looking to have a strong amount of confidence right now to get you moving.
I don't know if I ever had that moment. I think, in my opinion, right, we're always in our heads, we're always battling around whether or not this can work. The universal limiting belief is I'm not good enough, right? Every single one of us has doubts around whether or not we can do this. So we're almost never certain. I may have had a lot of aha moments where like I have this peak of believing that I'm going to be able to do it, but they're shortly followed by like, oh my God, what the hell did I get myself into? Like, there's no way this is going to work, right? So you almost never have that 100% certainty. And I think for a lot of people, they're looking for that certainty before they move forward. And that's the reason they're not successful. One of my favorite things to tell people, so Colin Powell, who was the Secretary of State when the US, like when 9/11 happened, when the US was going through the war on terror, somebody asked him like, you know, you make all these crazy big decisions that involve thousands of people's lives. How can you make decisions so quickly? He says, I have a 40-60 rule. Every decision I make, if I'm making it before I have 40% of the information, then I might be making the decision too early. If I make it after I have 60% of the information, then I've made the decision too late and people are losing lives. So the biggest piece of advice I have around that is like, I never feel 100% confident. I never have and I never will. But the only thing that I'm certain of is if I continue to take action and I continue to take the feedback and do it all with the right intention and the right energy and courageously, I'm going to be worlds better than if I did nothing. And that's all that really matters.
So when it comes to having problems, we've talked about rough patches, but what about some real hard hitting stuff? What about the stuff that could feel like an absolute brick wall that you run into, a problem that could absolutely crush you, floor you, completely stop you? These are the things that could also become inevitable. There is a lot of fate, dare I say, when it comes to success and creating what it is that you want. I don't believe personally that it's all about you being able to be completely self-made. I don't think that's 100%. So it is almost inevitable that you're going to be facing some rough, hard times. But when you face those hard times, the difference between the people that make it to the people that don't are the people that are able to get through those tough times and to be able to reframe, to be able to do the things needed, to be able to get back on that wagon. And really, thankfully, I ask Zander right now, what's a time that nearly floored him, stopped him, absolutely got him to completely stop? And this is what we have.
Oh, that's a great question. So the one thing that got me to nearly stop, about 6 months into starting my business, I was able to build a six-figure coaching business in about 3 months, multiple six figures within 4 or 5, 6 months. And 6 months into building my business, my best friend, AJ, committed suicide. And I still remember having that conversation with his dad, and his dad telling me that he took his own life. And I had worked with him a bit before, and I'd worked with people with PTSD, I'd worked with people with depression, I'd worked with people that were suffering, suicidal tendencies, and I'd helped them through those. But I didn't help AJ. And when you go through something like that, it doesn't matter who you are, you can't not feel guilty. You can't not feel like it's your fault, that you're responsible. And I created this belief in my mind that if I couldn't help AJ, how could I help anyone? And I had basically given up on my business because of one instance. And it wasn't until I realized, and it was because of mentors and community and the people around me. I would have never been able to pull myself out of that, but it was the people around me, it was the friends, it was the coaches, it was the mentors, it was the mastermind programs, it was the support that helped me realize that in some way, shape, or form, losing AJ was not going to be the reason for my downfall. It was going to be the reason that I was going to be great. It was going to be the reason that I was going to affect millions of people's lives, because even though he physically was not here anymore, I would not let his memory and his energy and everything that he stood for not get to the people that needed it.
Now, this is why I want to ask Zander this next question, which is really, why is it that you or me or anyone doesn't have the life, doesn't have the business that they really want? Because there can be things stopping you from making that happen right now. So how do you actually get through that today?
It's hard. Yeah, I think, I think for a lot of people, we live too narrowly. We live too small in our own little worlds, and we have, we've got our heads down, we've got our blinders on. And I think, it's important for us, we've got all these little problems that are going on in our life that are just getting more and more worse. They're getting significantly worse because we're numbing out the issue. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but the first thing that comes to mind, I'm half Pakistani, so I have these like Indian analogies that come to me. And my uncle always used to tell me, do you know how to boil a frog? So if you want to boil a frog, you put a frog in room temperature water and you slowly turn up the heat. And as the heat goes up 5 degrees, the frog starts to lose more energy and get more comfortable. It goes up another 5 degrees, lose more energy, gets more comfortable. 10 degrees, gets up to really warm. And by this point, the frog is actually too exhausted to be able to move. And then you turn it all the way up to boiling. If you put a frog in boiling hot water, it jumps out immediately. But most of our world is in these slowly rising, boiling pots, and they're not noticing that they're in a situation where they're just slowly bleeding out. Because they're not just thrown into a boiling pot of water. So if that person is not aware that they're in a slowly boiling pot of water, you need somebody external to point out, yo, dude, you're gonna die. You gotta do something or you're going to boil. So the only way out of that is external eyes.
Now, I want to make this really practical for you, and that is why I get Zander to answer. What's the one thing that you, watching this episode, being with us today, what's the one thing that you need to be able to do to walk away with, to be most productive, to get the ball rolling, to create the momentum that you need?
Ask for help. It sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world to do. When you need help, what's the hardest thing in the world to do? It's to ask for help. And it's by far, people think that it makes you look weak. People think that it makes you seem not successful. But the only successful people that I've ever met are the ones that have asked for help from the people around them and the people above them. It's the only way to get out of it. It's the only way to get to where you need to go. Just the willingness to ask for help from anyone.
Now, I don't want to talk all doom and gloom. I want to be able to look to the good stuff. I want to be able to have a bright future to be able to look for. And I want you to have a bright future to look toward as well. And one of the easiest ways I feel like that we can actually create that, because you might feel like a little bit of a stuckness when it comes to stuckness. Is that a real word? I'm going to roll with that. A little bit of a stuckness when it comes to you being able to create the life that you really want. Because maybe you're thinking too small. So that's why I want you to be able to see the lives that others are leading. Kind of look behind the scenes and have them open up about what's great about going on with them, so you can walk away with this episode and get clear on what exactly it is your life wants to be, so that you can make that happen.
The best part of my life now, it's hard to explain, but everything 3 years ago that I would have thought would have been my dream is currently happening. I live overlooking the beach in Encinitas, California, with the woman of my dreams, who I kidnapped from Australia, making multiple seven figures. We've got hundreds of people in our high-end programs at any one time, all around the world. We spent 2 weeks, we're looking at this last year, and we're like, oh, this was like a low travel year. We spent 2 weeks in Tulum, we spent time in Canada, all across the US. We're going to Greece and Italy in a week. We've taken time off to spend in Australia with Maddie's family. Literally everything that we look at is the dream life that I would have wanted 3 years ago. The other day, I had a really stressful day of 6 straight hours of coaching calls. I was like, oh man, that's a lot of coaching calls. And then I looked back at 3 years ago, and I was like, 3 years ago, Zander would murder for 6 straight hours worth of coaching calls with clients that are paying you thousands of dollars to be working with you. That would be literally the dream. People that idolize you, that take every word that comes out of your mouth and put it into action. That's the dream. And that's literally the life that I get to live right now.
All right, so right now, if there's one thing that Zander and I want you to walk away from with this episode that you can do right now, that I want you to put in the comments now from what Zander is going to help you with, I want you to be able to know what's that thing that to be able to do. So in the comments below, once you see Zander's answer, when I ask him, what is that one thing that we, you, me, us need to do now to make that happen? What is it? Here it is.
The one thing that I would say to everybody out there, the one thing that you can do now, and this sounds super cliche, but imperfect action. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single day of the week. I think this world, because there's such a low barrier to entry to get into entrepreneurship and to get into the online space, this sounds really harsh, but this world is breeding weak entrepreneurs. It's breeding people that are afraid to just take a little bit of action. And it doesn't take a lot of courage to just take a little bit of action. But once you take a little bit of imperfect action and you don't die, you very quickly realize that you can take more imperfect action and you can take more. And as you keep taking more, you learn and you grow. And as you learn and you grow, you get better. And the imperfect action becomes more perfect action. And you start to see results. But it all starts with imperfect action.
So I don't know about you, but I absolutely love that guy. Zander, an incredible human being. I'm so grateful that he was being able to sit down with us. Now, if you want to be able to ask questions to Zander, I want you to be able to put them into the comments below so I can put them straight to him when we sit down for the next interview as well. So I really am grateful for you joining us today. I want to make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the show, please subscribe, because it would be a huge bummer if you missed out on any of the upcoming episodes that are really breaking open, showing you and giving you the step-by-steps into what's needed to happen for you to be able to build the business, build the life that you really want, and to get rid of that confusion, to get rid of that frustration, so you can just make that happen as well. So thank you so much for you being you, and I'll see you in the next episode.